Ciao, I'm Mario, the Swiss car guy on YouTube, and this is my 2008 Porsche Cayman S, a car I've been working on for a long time. And what does working on mean? Well, I recently, and when I say recently, I say about 4 or 5 months ago, I made a video where I installed a new aftermarket head unit, a radio, into this car. And yeah, I had to do some more work, and I've finished it now. And if you ask what is more work, then I will tell you, or maybe you can see it. When I ordered the radio, it had the option of getting a 360-degree camera kit with it. And I thought, well, it's just 40 bucks more, so I ordered it. And I thought, well, it's probably going to be a lot of work to install it. And I was right. Now that I've finished, I can tell you, in total, it has taken me about 30 hours to install the whole thing. But that's including the radio. But the radio itself, I think, was about 5 hours because I'm slow. But the whole thing took me 30 hours. And being the YouTuber that I am, I obviously did not record it. Because honestly, if I had recorded all that, I would probably go insane now trying to edit 30 hours of footage. So no, but what I did is I took a lot of pictures. So this means we are now doing a picture show. So it's like when your aunt comes back from holidays, just in this case it's about an old Porsche and some weird Chinese cameras. So let me just go into it, trying to do the narration here, because right now I don't know what I've all photographed because it's been months. But I started after I installed the radio. If you want to know more about that, look at the last video. I'll link it somewhere here. No. I start with the rear because the backup camera is the first thing I installed. Ah yes, the backup camera. I installed it right here. I bought one of those little light housings for the number plate light that you can put the camera in it, and I did, and it looks all right. It's too intense for the number plate light. I did buy another LED number plate light for the other side, which doesn't have the thing, but the one with the camera is still brighter, and I think that's what it is. However, when I installed everything back here, well, first I had to take stuff out of the back and the sound deadening and everything to get everything on. But what I didn't want to do is take the bumper off, because I am lazy, and not taking the bumper off turned out to be a bad choice, because while I didn't take the bumper off, I still needed to get the camera somehow down there. So what I had to do is basically get the wire out through the tail light. I removed the tail light, obviously, because I also had to tap into the tail light for power. But then from the tail light, with different kinds of wire, I tried to fish the wire for the camera through here and underneath here. And it has taken me about 3 hours to do that. And removing and putting the bumper back on, I reckon, would have taken me half an hour maximum. So if you want to do this yourself, take the bumper off, because not taking the bumper off doesn't make any sense. Eventually I got it in, it's installed and it works, and then I put everything back together because I didn't need anything back here anymore. As I mentioned, I did have to tap into the backup light to get the backup signal, because this is a manual 987.1. The 987.1 doesn't send a signal to the radio via CAN bus that you have inserted reverse. So if you want to trigger your camera when you put it in reverse, you have to get the signal somewhere. And on the forums I read, yeah, I know there's a blue and black cable somewhere underneath the seat. I searched for that, I didn't find it. Then maybe under the kick panel, so I searched for it there too, I didn't find it. Then there was in front at the navigation unit, there is this magical cable that gives you that signal. So I searched there too, and I didn't find it. So I spent hours and hours and hours trying to find that cable, until I just said, you know, if it's there, it's too well hidden, because I didn't find it. So in the end, since I'd have to run the camera back there anyway, I just ran an additional cable and tapped that into the back light. And then again, I mean, I probably wouldn't even have had to run an additional cable, because I think the camera has a little power wire on it. But Anyway, I ran an additional cable because it's a thin wire, it's just a signal wire, it doesn't matter. I wired it in and it works. So the rear was kind of the easy part, believe it or not. So let's get to the next part, the front. Also, some asshole already driven into my car. It's insane. I had the same problems when I had my 996 Turbo, that randomly people would just drive into the car. And it's not me, obviously, because first, I'm a sensible person, and second, the car has sensors and the camera, so why would I back up into anything? One of the challenges was to get the cables into the frunk. And when I say the cables, I mean the one cable for the camera. So I removed all the cladding here. I also used the occasion to remove the old navigation computer from in here, because I don't need it anymore. I have another radio that has integrated navigation. So I removed it in order to gain a bit more space in here, so I can put more stuff like tools and other things, which is actually a nice little bonus from doing this work. Great design. Now to take all this thing off. The old navigation unit is out. There it is. And there is the cage that was mounted on top of this little place. I passed the cable through the large grommet behind or right next to the battery. I put some corrugated tubing around it because I was concerned about chafing. On the plus side, it also looks more factory. On the inside, the cable comes out pretty far above the pedal box, which is fairly close to the back of the radio. I then routed and cable tied the cable closely to the factory ones up to the second grommet that passes the cable from the battery compartment to the actual frunk. That grommet is right behind the brake booster. That got me into the frunk. And then I added some more corrugated tubing and fastened the cable along the edges of the frunk before routing it to the front. And again, because I am lazy, I didn't want to get the front bumper off, so I had to fish wires through from there to here, and yeah, it worked, but also I needed to find a place to get the cable out into the outside, and there was like a rubber plug or something like that, and that worked well, except I pushed it into the bumper. So then I had to undo parts of the bumper in order to recover it, because I didn't have another rubber plug of the same size. But then I found the plug, I got the cable through, put everything back on, and have the camera here. Now you might ask, how did you fix the camera? Let me show you. So this is the front camera. I just basically made a hole into this black part here, and then got the connector in. The connector is connected up here underneath this trim, so I could connect and disconnect it if I wanted. And then I fixed it with a bracket here. Like, it's not pretty, but it is very low to the ground, so if you get up, you don't see that much. So it's somewhat stealthy. And the most important thing is, it works. The front was actually quite labor intensive, but I'm glad it's done, and it's quite good, I think. I mean, it's not pretty, it's not factory. Maybe I can make a better housing for it, but so far I think it's all right. Maybe with a slightly nicer housing it would look more factory, but you know, work. And now the most difficult part of them all, the cameras in the mirror. I don't know how well you can see it, but now my car has little bumps underneath here with cameras in it. They are really big, especially compared to the mirrors, but then again, I mean, from the top you don't see them at all, and from the bottom you see them a lot. From inside the car you do get a hint of them. So yeah, it's not the greatest looking thing, but they're functional, they work. Little update from the editing room. The install in the mirrors, I actually filmed that. So I have a complete video of disassembling the mirror and drilling and adding the camera and that. But it's been a bit long and detailed, so I've not included it into this video. I've uploaded a separate video that is linked somewhere here. And in this video, I will just briefly recap what I did and what the challenges were. So if you're interested in the whole process, go watch the other video after you finish this one. Putting cameras in mirrors poses a lot of challenges. The chief among them is like, how do you get the camera into the mirror? Well, that's easy, you drill. So I did take the mirror off the car. I measured it out because I didn't know if the mirror had enough space inside, because these are quite, you know, shallow mirrors. The cameras are quite thick, so I basically made a little mock-up with an old cork from a wine bottle. I just cut it so that it had about the size that the camera would have if it's inside the mirror, and I placed it inside the mirror to see if there's enough clearance, and fortunately there was. So once I had established that, I then drilled through here with the supplied drill, because they supplied the drill bit with the cameras, and that actually did very light work of it. It cut very clean and well and the right size. And then in order to make the camera fit, there is a gasket here, and the cameras came with two gaskets, a shallow one and a deep one, and I had to use the deep one because if I used the shallow one, the camera would sit more inside the mirror, and then it wouldn't fit, or it would hit stuff against the inside of the mirror. So I used the thicker gasket, which pushes the camera further down and leaves more space inside the mirror. But then again, this works, the mirror still works, everything works. The only thing I had some problem getting to work was the camera itself, because, well, now I have a camera in the mirror, but how do I connect it up? Because there is wiring going to the camera and there is like a door. So I figured, well, one thing is the connector for the mirror itself. Since my car only has heated mirrors but nothing else, a lot of the pins are empty. So you could basically drill through and then just push the cable through it, which I think would be an easy solution, but it's not a clean solution, because if you do that, the connector doesn't stay watertight anymore. And you want it to be watertight, because otherwise you have water coming inside the car, running through the doors. That's not good. So I went for the slightly more complicated, and when I say slightly, I mean a lot more complicated version. I bought the correct pins for inside the connector, and then I cut the cables and I crimped the pins on, and then I inserted the pins into the connector, and then I had a male and a female side like it was factory, and it's all one unit. And now I can remove the mirrors, put them back on. It's all handled through the same connector, and it works now, but it didn't work originally, because the wires I had to connect, one was unshielded, and that was the ground wire, and that used to short in the connector. So I had to take it all apart again. Then I had to insulate the wire. I used liquid electrical tape, very nasty stuff. And then I had to also change the location of the pin further away from other pins so it wouldn't short out. So in the end, I made it work. It does work. And I also found out that actually there's too many wires I used, because there was 4 wires, yellow, red, black, and I think white. And the white wire, actually I shouldn't have connected it at all, because the white wire, what does it do? It sends the signal from the indicator, from the blinkers, to the radio. That way, if you have like an indicator in the mirror, you can tap into that, and then when you use the indicator, the radio will receive the signal and activate the camera and show you the image, so you can have better visual when you have to go left or go right. But since my car doesn't have indicators in the mirror, I didn't need to hook it up at all, so one wire too many. Anyway, the important wires: red power, black ground, black unshielded is ground, and then there was the yellow, which is the video signal. So I managed to get it to work. I connected it all up and it works. And really, to get to this point, it has taken me 30 hours. And it has taken me 30 hours because I had to do the mirrors like twice. I had to take them apart again and then reconnect everything. And also, pushing those pins into the connector was quite tricky. The male part on the mirror itself was easy because I did this on the bench at home, but the inside the car was more difficult because that's a female connector, so you cannot just push the pins in. It has like a locking mechanism that I had to figure out, so you can basically separate the connector, put the pins in, and then you can twist it and close it again. It took me hours to figure that out. Also, I had to clean up the wiring. I used the opportunity to check the car while it was apart if everything was all right. So far, it's all good. But it's taken me a lot of time. Also, while the radio was out again, I put in the 3D printed brackets that allow the radio to slide into the rails of the car and to stay put. I had printed out a version I found on the Porsche forums, and that really didn't do it for me. The radio was still too loose, and I really ordered these from a 3D printing service. They cost me about, I think, 30 or 40 bucks, and I really didn't want to order another one, so I did the only logical thing and spent $1,000 and bought a 3D printer myself, and then I designed a improved bracket which is thicker and has a little slope, and I printed it out, and it works perfectly. And I also, if you want it, there's a link somewhere to Makerworld where I shared it for anyone who wants to try it as well. So now the radio is fixed well, and everything works, but everything works after I calibrated the system, because yes, you put cameras everywhere, the radio doesn't really know where the cameras are or how large a car is. So there is a calibration procedure to do, and for that you need some calibration cloths, which were not supplied with the radio I bought. And after I made my first video, the seller offered them to me for free, but I think if you order a 360-degree camera kit, the calibration cloths are needed, so they should be supplied. I then bought them from another seller because, nah, too little, too late. If you want to get the 360-degree kit, don't forget the cloths, because otherwise you cannot calibrate it, you cannot stitch it together, it doesn't look nice and it's not very useful. But if you haven't gotten it now, don't buy the 360-degree camera kit, because it's like way too laborious to install. If you have to pay a specialist, it costs way too much money, and the upside is very low. I mean, I wouldn't even have needed the backup camera because my car has sensors in the back. So the calibration, which was another fun part, because these calibration cloths are gigantic. They're like 3 meters wide or 4 meters, I don't know. And I tried to do it outside, but at the slightest breeze they would fly away. I even tried sticking them down with tape and putting things on them, but it didn't work. Maybe it was also just too windy of a day, but I wanted to do it today because today is the last pretty day, the last nice warm day before actually winter returns next week. So I needed to do it now, and in order to avoid the wind, I did it in the garage, because fortunately the garage that I had to rent for this car has a wash bay, and today's Sunday, and I reckon Sunday at lunch nobody's washing their car, so I went into the wash bay, and fortunately the wash bay was exactly the right size. It fit just the cloth, so I could do the calibration. And then, since I was in the wash bay, I just washed the car, which you wouldn't think because it's full of pollen already, but it was washed like half an hour ago. Anyway, basically that's it. I'm done. The 360-degree camera is installed, it works, it's calibrated. It's probably more of a gimmick than a really useful feature, but you know, it was a winter project. I've done it, it works. I wouldn't recommend doing it to anybody because it's way too much work and requires too much tinkering, so don't do it. The radio I would recommend because I think it's pretty good. The display is bad though. I mean, it's bad in the sense that it is too dim in daylight, even though I tinkered with it what I could, and I think in the night it's too bright, so you cannot like dim it enough. There is a setting to do like additional dimming, but all it does is basically overlay a black image over the screen, and then you basically can't see anything anymore. So yeah, not the greatest thing, especially since I paid like 400 bucks for this radio, and even the one I put in my Trans Am, which cost me like 150 bucks, has a much better screen than this. So I guess this is what you pay for having like the customized Porsche design stuff. Like, it integrates well, it looks good, it works well, but the display could be better. Now you might ask, Mario, why did you install this Chinese thing and not the Porsche PCCM Plus, which is Porsche's factory option for these old cars? They started offering, I believe, this year or at the end of last year, which is like an updated infotainment for these ancient cars, which first I want to say is a really cool thing that Porsche does it, because what other manufacturer offers new things, especially like radio and stuff? So the PCCM Plus by Porsche is certainly a cool thing, but it wasn't the right device for me. And the reason is very simple. First off, it is very expensive. It's like, I think 1,600 euros or something like this, which is about 1,600 Swiss francs. And this one was 400. Also, I think this one's better. It offers more functionality because this is a fully fledged like Android 10 device. You can put YouTube on it, you can do whatever apps you want. Whereas the Porsche thing is basically a very locked down ancient Android version that's just there to use CarPlay and Android Auto, and you cannot install apps on it. It doesn't make sense because I like to use YouTube in the car, and I'm not saying watch, but I like to use it to listen to my favorite podcasts and stuff like that. But you cannot do it on that. You have to do it through your phone, and then audio only. It's not the same content. I don't like it. And also the PCCM Plus, what I find a bit disappointing is it doesn't integrate as well into the car as I thought, because this Chinese thing, it integrates reasonably well. It receives CAN bus communication. Yeah. The PCCM Plus, I expected that it integrates perfectly in the sense that you can use the car's built-in microphone for the hands-free calling, because the cars have built-in microphone in the steering column, I believe. So even the PCCM Plus cannot use the built-in microphone, which I mean, if I buy factory Porsche, I expect to be able to use factory stuff and not having to do an additional microphone, which my car has anyway. It's not very pretty, but it works. And even I think the call quality is decent. So here's a sample of voice inside the car. Sound quality test of me driving about 90 on the motorway. And yes, I'm driving slowly. Sound quality test of me being stationary in the car at a red light. By the way, nice stains on your shirt. Also, the display, while not being great in this thing, at least it's slightly bigger than the PCCM Plus, because I think this is like 8 inches and the PCCM Plus is like 1 inch less. So if that's important. Even though on the PCCM Plus you cannot really play videos and stuff like that, so bigger display does not necessarily have to be better. Oh, another thing, the 360-degree camera app comes with a recording mode. So if you put in a USB drive in one of the USB connectors and you activate recording, it will record everything while it's on. And while this may sound useful as a hidden dash cam basically, the thing is it records all the cameras at the same time with full distortion and in 720p, so the quality is terrible, you cannot recognize anything. To me this doesn't really replace a dash cam, it's just basically a gimmick. So my odyssey installing the 360-degree camera has ended. Finally, it works. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but the radio is okay. I would recommend it, so get it. It's a nice improvement. The sound quality is actually pretty decent. My car has Sound Package Plus, and it has the radio has a lot of equalizer function and time alignment, so the sound quality is much better than it was before. It's of course not perfect because it doesn't have a subwoofer and stuff like that, but it's still really good. And I'm absolutely, for 400 bucks, this is an easy buy. And also, if you buy one of these, buy the highest spec one, so with a 8-core processor and 56 megabyte of RAM or flash, or 8 GB of RAM, whatever, because it's going to be faster. If you just want to use it for Android Auto or for CarPlay, then okay, get the cheaper version, because it's basically just a screen that lets your phone do the talking. But if you want to use apps like me, like YouTube, like Google Maps, whatever, buy the more expensive one. It's even then at 400 bucks, it's not that expensive, especially compared to the Porsche PCCM Plus, which is 4 times the price. But I think this is it. What do you think of my work? And please comment down below. And also follow me on Instagram at SwissCarGuyMario if you want to see at least somewhat frequent updates, because I'm not very active there either. Anyway, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe, so you might receive a notification once in 4 months or something like this about the new video. But if you like this, leave a like. This is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have more questions about my radio install, the cameras, why I didn't get the PCCM Plus, please put them in the comments. Otherwise, have a nice day. Bye.